Hello everyone, welcome to Z-Man Plays. I'm Z-Man. Today I'm going to be doing something a little bit differently. I want to pay it back to the titans of settlement build YouTubers of the past, like Cordless VII, you have Oxhorn to a degree, right, and so many others. So today I thought I would provide some advice, tips and tricks for better developing your settlements in a more immersive way. Uh, Disclaimer, you might hear me say things like you don't want to, or you want to try to avoid, right? Like verbiage like that. At the end of the day, if when you look at your settlements, you get those butterflies and you're very proud of yourself and you enjoy how it looks in your game, then that's all that matters, right? But if you're looking at your settlements and you're thinking, like, something feels off, something's missing, how could there's something I want to do, like, to really pull this all together. That's what this series is for, is to kind of give some helpful tips and advice on how to, I guess, make your settlement shine a bit more. Today's, I guess, episode, you could say, is going to be solely around planning your settlement planning, right? What is its purpose? What is its layout going to be? Looking things like the terrain of your settlement, the and all those fun things. So we're going to be going through some of my recent settlement builds, and I'm going to be talking about them from more of a development standpoint, and kind of talking about what my mindset was going into them. And then hopefully that will inspire you to for some of your future builds. Alrighty, here we are. You might notice that my game mode looks a little bit differently. I did turn off the Simply Green mod, just because it was making it hard to walk to this settlement. I do plan on turning it back on for whenever I do like my silent tours. Anyway, so back to the build. So you'll notice, the very first thing you notice is the tall wall around my settlement, right? And this is something you see a lot of, right? When people build like their big settlements, or whatever capital they have, they build a giant wall, which is great, right? What I want to recommend is that you don't spend the time and resources for every settlement. Not every settlement needs a wall. To me, walls mean wealth, right? If your settlement has the materials, the manpower, the financing, right? All these things to build these massive walls. It tells me that that settlement is extremely wealthy, right? Think of like old-timey, like medieval times, right? Like the entire village wasn't surrounded by a ginormous wall. It was usually the keep, right? Like the castle itself. They had the castle walls, and then I guess you could say like the peasant villages were surrounding it, right? So you also got to think of the purpose of the wall, like. Here, this is a huge asset. This is my agricultural powerhouse of this, like, I guess this corner of the Commonwealth, right? So if you look around, this is a I know it's not literally, but relatively flat, hilly area. And there are 360 degrees around is a potential avenue of attack for raiders or troop units or whatever have you, right? And since this is currently my center to like my developing Commonwealth, this is why I invested so heavily into defense. But with that being said, I don't have a ton of guard posts. I have two relatively tall watchtowers, right, that cover just about every view. So when an enemy approaches, the settlement will be notified and be able to prepare itself to repel the attack before the first round goes off. So I know that was a long tip about walls, but I'm going to go more into that later on when we visit some of my other settlements. So going into the why, right? Why is your settlement there? What drew the attention of settlers? Why do they want to move here, right? For this one, it's opportunity and work. So as soon as you walk in, this is not a touristy settlement, right? So we don't want big open gates. We have a lot of assets in here that we want to keep safe. So we have a very narrow way of entry, right? So as soon as you get here, this is my little office area, right? So when another settlement radios in and say, hey, we are requesting X, Y, and Z requisition. So in this case, it was produce. Uh, the supply personnel here will gather the requisition and bring it to the front desk. The Brahmin will wait outside. The requisition will then be loaded onto the Brahmin so they can get going, right? Now here, this is an office to fill out paperwork, right? Accept payment, things of that nature. So we have like a safe up here. There's plenty of filing cabinets, right? Now this is, you know, the biggest point of entry. So if there are any issues, I want my settler to be able to hop into action. But and then we have a little duty hut across the way, right? So what I typically do in order to make my settlement a lot more immersive is I'm always asking, well, how, and why, right? How are there so many? How do we procure so many Brahmin in order to supply all these provisioners, right? How are we getting produce? Who's feeding this this Commonwealth? Where are we getting all the build materials to make these gigantic walls and so on and so forth, right? And I just snowball effects from there, right? Every so often you have to let something go just because it can get a little much, but the more, as long as you keep it fun, right, and the more you're able to answer, your settlement will feel a lot more immersive, and you'll feel like you could walk in this settlement and live here yourself and be relatively happy, right? So going into like these, you know, going down the rabbit hole of questions, right? Always, like, you want to interview yourself. So where is construction happening, right? So are we just, where's our little workshop area? You could just say that you just bring the materials to the work site and then assemble it there on the spot. For this settlement, I decided to say we have a little workshop area. This is my very first post. I started the whole series with this building. This is my construction shack. So everything here is measured, framed, cut, right? Blueprints are drawn here, the whole nine. So this is where I started. This is, you know, in my playthrough, the sole survivor is going all around the surrounding areas and collecting what he can, and he's bringing it here, and then he's building what he can out of it, right? And then he makes himself a little loft on top. Getting really into the roleplay of Fallout 4 and really diving deep into your character is such a great way to play, and you'll see the results of that mindset in your settlements. So going forward from that, right? You know, kind of picturing yourself in the boots of the sole survivor. If you were there, what would you need? And try to think beyond the base requirements, right? Like the base needs of, you know, food, water, shelter, defense, right? You want to think about what else do you need in order to make it in the wasteland. Like, sure, your material needs might be met in terms of survival, but what's going to keep you going? What's going to be your reason for getting up in the morning? So it's kind of a running joke in the Fallout community, but bathrooms, right? Let's be honest, when you are at the end of a hard day and it's time to, you know, lighten the load, you could say, you want a comfortable spot to do it. So for me, outhouses are a great source to do that in. It's just, you know, it's pre-assembled. It's basically a prefab. You just throw it in the place. I've seen people do very unique ones from scratch, and I do plan on kind of like toying around with it and seeing what else I can come up with. But in terms of the lore, right, we have these elevated outhouses with these, you know, extended latrines. And in my mind, someone will move this board here and rake out all the, you know, all the dung and, you know, burn it so it's not causing disease or issues, but it's also keeping it out of the way. So when it, you know, sinks into the ground and whatnot, there's some sort of barrier keeping that contaminant from getting to the soil. And because I know personally in real life that human waste isn't great for fertilizer, but I mean maybe in your gameplay it does, right? Remember, it's all in what's going through your head when you're building this. Maybe in your gameplay it does, and maybe that is a source of fertilizer, right? A lot of bathroom talk, but these again just giving examples as to questions to ask yourself and potential answers you might give yourself, right? Again, in order to help make your settlement feel more fleshed out and alive. So since this is a farm and ranch, I wanted to keep the aesthetic close to that. So I recently went, or at the time of building this, I recently went to an old ranch house. You know, completely decommissioned. It's more so just like a memorial site now. Um, I don't know if memorial is the right word to use. Monument. Uh, of an old ranch house, and I loved it, and it felt so quaint and everything. They had stories about how this I guess the maid there, she was also like the cook, right? Would grow vegetables in the back in order to add to the the ranchers' meals and whatnot. So I decided to do that. Look up some photos on Facebook, not Facebook, on Google, right? And toy around with that and see what I can come up with. And I came up with these ranch-style apartments. These are the second things I did, and I will get more into them. I'm going to come back here and use this once again as an example when we talk about how to make your structures look a bit more fleshed out and organic, right? But each one is personalized. So for this one, these guys are like gamers, right? Like desktop gamers or tabletop gamers. Sorry, they like to gamble, and this guy has a little trophy because he won the last round or whatever have you, right? They have more toys and things over here. These guys like to come home and game. And then each one has a little balcony, right? This because the one I saw had a lot of balconies. And I think it came out really well. And if you want to think of it as a practical standpoint, let's say you're getting attacked from this direction, everyone has their door closed, and pop, 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 you hear gunfire, you come out, and everyone turns and burns on the enemy. You know what I mean? So there are multiple ways you can think about it. Going on with, immersion, right? Trying to think about realism and, what would you, excuse you, dog meat. This dog, sorry, he's just like my dog. So you need you need defense, you need a watchtower, you need to be able to get up high so you can see all the potential areas around you. Now you already have this exceedingly tall structure. Are you going to go and spend even more resources building another tall tower right next to it? No, you just throw it on the roof, right? I mean, this is the apocalypse, right? We're not calling ourselves carpenters here. So yeah, that's why this is up here, right? If that makes sense. And it gives an excellent view. Well, I mean, disregarding my frame rate, but you get the idea. Heading back down, where are all your settlers going to eat, right? Are people just going to sit on the dirt and in a circle and just kind of like, or go to their separate corners? You got to think, humanity, we're very social creatures, right? We need a place to congregate at the end of the day. Think cavemen, at the end of when the night came and they lit the campfire, that's when stories are made, and that's when history was told and all the things, right? Skills were passed on. So taking the history nerd away from it, that's what I decided to do. So I made like this communal dining area, perfect for the end of the day lunch things. Now you would typically see like one long dining table, just because of space issues. I decided to make it two. Maybe we'll like little clicks form or whatnot, and then a small kitchen back here. That's just packed with different meals and dishes and things, right? I am realizing this is kind of just a selfish way to do another milk on some more views out of the same settlement, but there's different purpose in mind, right? Leave me alone. So this door back here, I did have to throw this in because my settler was having pathing issues and it does clip a lot. Realistically, I wouldn't have this here. I would just have them go through the front, but we make do, right? So another one of those base needs that aren't the stats of your settlement don't necessarily capture, right? People need the ability to be social with one another, so providing those spaces, right? And then we'll get more into this in the decoration, but you want to cater to where people are naturally going to want to hang out, right? So everyone lives here in these buildings. Naturally, they're going to come outside and sit on, if say you want to go talk to your neighbor, have seating around those areas where in reality people would congregate around. More on that in a future video. More questions, right, and potential answers. Where are all the Brahmin coming from? Well, we know they're wild Brahmins, so we want to trap for them, but we want to bake it into the settlement. You know what I mean? You want to, you don't want to just throw it down, let it, half floating off the floor. You want to try to integrate it into your settlement, right? So I took that question, decided to make build it into the story. We have a trapper here who maybe is very big in trapping, and he came to the settlement. He's like, hey, I heard you guys have one Brahmin. You wanted to expand. I actually know of a herd that tends to come around this area. I can trap for you if you want, and that's how he earned his place in the settlement, right? And then he planted some razor grain to help with his feed. But, you know, things often get trapped in animal traps that aren't the animal you're looking for. So in those cases, he butchers them and adds to the economy of the settlement, right? I was hoping that was visually told when I gave the settlement tour. Let me know if that was lost on you and about how I could do a better job with that. So over here, I started decorating this, but my frame rate was just like not having it. The idea for this is like, so that's the workers' living quarters, right? That's where all the farmers, the ranch hands, they live over there. Then over here was supposed to be like the barracks, you can say, like the guardhouse. It was gonna have a bunch of bug pets here. It was gonna look very militant, but it was just, I started decorating it, and then I got scared because of the frame rate dropping issue, and I almost crashed. Same thing with over here. So this is my warehouse. Everything. If we are exporting so much, where are we storing all these materials? And I just threw this in here as, again, as a part of the wall, right? Utilizing the best space that you can. And then lastly, my my Brahmin pen, right? And even then, right, what do we say these Brahmin are for? Well, they're for provisioners, right? Whenever someone calls in and say, hey, we're a new settlement, we need a Brahmin to in order to ship and receive goods, right? And or let's say one from a settlement dies and they need to replace it, right? So there's always room for that in order. If they get past a certain point, then they just butcher them and sell the meat. But you got to think, if you have a handful of Brahmin here, why wouldn't you breed them to make more so you're not solely relying on trapping, right? And it's not like the trapper's going to go out of business. Look how much meat he's getting. So you're breeding them, you're getting calves. The cows are lactating, right? Might as well milk some more calves out of them, you know what I mean? That was me slapping my knee. But yeah, just taking those little story element, like the more questions you ask yourself of how and why, right? It's not just to be nitpicky, right? And you're not trying to don't let it suck the fun out of your settlement, but doing that can inspire you to add more, you know? To add more and make it fit into your settlement from both a lore perspective, a headcanon's perspective, and just the visual. It just looks better, right? And then when people see that, it clicks in their brain. They go, "Oh, that's an amazing idea. Why didn't I think of that?" And then sometimes less is more. I just threw down. At this point, I was ready to move on to my next settlement. I was very excited to start the 10 Pines Bluff, so I just a prefab some CBC. And then the last question I thought of myself as I was building this was, well, this is a very hilly terrain, and if we're using wagons and carts and things like that to get the goods from the warehouse to the front, that's going to be a pain in the butt. So I made a little catwalk, and I think it adds a lot of character, even for something so minor. And then, well, might as well, since we're up here, might as well build another, maybe there's a greeter up here sometimes. And that all of it comes full circle back to the front of the settlement. And was this partially just me wanting to give you more detailed tour of my settlement? Maybe. But I hope the level of detail and kind of the thought process that went into everything inspires you to do the same with your next build. Here we are at 10 Pines Bluff Recycle Center, right? And this was I believe my most recent post I made, or at least silent tour. And if you see, I have no walls. And why is that, right? Is this settlement poorer? No, I would say they're doing probably equally, if not maybe a little bit better than Abernathy is, just because of how much building materials are needed at this point in time. But I still didn't include walls. One is, well, I guess solely is terrain, and that comes in two parts, right? One, because of how hilly, I guess you could say, and the different levels there are, it would be pretty hard to make a wall look pretty good here, even if it's just a junk wall, right? And the amount of resources it would take to do that was something I wasn't really comfortable doing. Um, just because I'm doing a survival run and I'm doing the no cheats run, uh, waiting the 3 days for all my crops and all my water to be done spawning in, so I could take that over and buy as many shipments as I can, and then just for the shipments to run out, it's kind of a pain in the butt. So um, there's the practical aspect of just I don't wanna, but on the other hand, so one is difficulty. It's just not very practical. On the other hand, it's not really needed. So if you look, the most, so from the west, I'd say, northwest area, is probably where you're going to see uh, the most attacks from, right? Just because it's I guess, relatively the flattest area. But even then, there's a lot of, that's a hard terrain to cross. And if we have these tall towers here to look over that direction, we can once again prepare our troops and be ready to counterattack before they even get here. But if we look to the east and the northeast, right, and even a bit to the southeast, there's a huge hillside here. No one's attacking from this direction, and if they are, they're going to get met with a pretty bad day. I'm tracking you. There is a path down there that leads down, but you can see just about everything, everywhere an enemy would come from at all times. And this area doesn't get too foggy, so it's relatively well defended. I would say just as much as a wall would in the event of an attack. So for defenses, I decided to go purely with guard towers, and but with that being said, I added a few more than I did with Abernathy Farm, right? So let's talk layout, right? The way you you structure your settlement, right? That's something I call implied pathways. So the way you decide to set up your layout and organize the structures in your settlements, you'll see this kind of natural road form of your character walking through. So think of Diamond City. When you get to the center, like the marketplace, it's this huge circular path on a central point, and everything you need is right there. So it's very easy to get to everything. So let's say I am a visitor and I'm here for work, or let's say I'm just coming back from dropping goods off over at Sunshine Tidings Boot Camp, right? That's currently in development. Well, I come here, and you got to think there are people who live here. Think about you living here. Are you just going to want to work, eat, and go to bed? You need something, right? There's one of the things that at least us here in the States love is shopping, right? So this is a recycled center, right? So we have in my head, physically, and you won't be really able to see them because in my head they're out. We have people out and about in the surrounding areas scavenging. Well, this is exactly why I picked Ten Pines Bluff as my recycling center, which is another thing you want to keep in place, right? We're talking about geographical location and what that area is missing. So in my story, right, I came here after clearing out Satellite Station Olivia for the Abernathys. Well, and then I come back, I help them develop, and then Abernathy say, hey, we have these friends over at Ten Pines Bluff who are trying to get their feet off the ground too. If you could help them whip up a farm. And you think, well, I mean, I don't really want to step on your toes by building you competition, so what else can I help them with? Well, there's a huge pre-war military base. There is a disposal site, not the Galleria. Where is it? There's a cemetery potentially, Bedford Station, thicket excavations. What I really wanted to show off is this crash airliner, and then there's somewhere around, I'm not exactly sure where it is on the map, but there is another little like old dump. There's a lot of great places in order to scavenge raw materials to be turned into building materials here on the map. That's base game. So that's why I decided to make this recycle center. Little details like that, right? So where do the cars come from? Well, they came from the car lot. Where do the generators come from? Well, they probably came from Satellite Olivia or any of the other locations I talked about. Where are all the trees coming from? Well, look at all the trees around here. I've seen a lot of people turn this into a lumber mill just because of how thick the woods are around here. That was a that was a pretty long rant, um, just to explain that you get a lot of scavengers going out, and when they bring something back that may not be good for turning into, let's say, steel beams or wooden boards, nails, whatever have you, it goes to her, and she sells it, right? Or it goes out to the settlers. So if you just need, let's say, a teddy bear to cuddle at night, or let's say your clothes ripped and you need some thread to fix your clothes, or whatever else have you. You want to decorate your house so that way when you go back to your apartment, it's it's not just a mattress on the floor. You actually have something nice to come home to. These little things, right? But still keeping it post-apocalyptic, because that's what we love about Fallout. That was a very long rant. Let me go back to the implied paths, right? So you come in through, there's a shop to the left, there's work to the left, going immediately right. While we have Sanctuary as our major exporter in water, no one wants to be solely reliant on imports. Everyone wants to at least have some sort of backup. So we do have a small water purifier here, and kind of acts a little bit like a bar, more so just like a water stand. And going back to that, where are people going to congregate at the end of the day? Where would you naturally want to hang out around after a long day? So you're going to come over here, you're going to get your water ration, and you're just going to chillax right there, because the water, you want it relatively nearby. Having little relaxation areas right to fill in blank spaces is a great way to add a little bit more character to your settlements. Again, we'll talk about this more in structures, which is filling in spaces where you have them, right? So I had this big catwalk here, and it made sense because I wanted to cover this entire corner right here just in case anything big came up, because that was my mindset. I was like, anything is going to come over here, it's going to be something big, like soup mutants. But I figured, it's like, well, I had this catwalk, and it's so close to my little trailer right here, which houses all my logs ready to be processed. I could throw in a little extra space and some beds over here. So that's what I did. Sometimes less is more. It's supposed to look a little militant, but I think it works perfectly. Then following that natural path, everything meets on it, in one easy walk. You can get to everywhere you need to be all in one road. There's no twists and turns, back alleys, anything like that. Everything's just here. Very easy to navigate. And something I like to do is don't feel so fixated on one thing. So I started with the barrack. I started with these apartments, this kind of duplex design. I hadn't built this one on the right yet. And then I went over to the wood, and I started figuring that out. And when I got to a pause, and I was feeling this kind of like I don't really know what to do next, I head over to the next location. It's like, well, wood is good enough. At least it started. Head over, and I started assembling my metal plant. And I kind of just like ping pong all over the place. It's like, oh, you know what? Now this is here. This is lacking some character. Let me go over here and fiddle with it. Oh, this area looks great, but now I have this huge gap right here. Oh, you know what? I would love to get some more settlers in here. Actually, let me throw in some more housing that matches the duplex next to it. Oh, I love this whole area right here. Let me take a step back and look. What is it missing? Well, I haven't done anything over the hill over here yet. So what is this settlement missing, right? Just keep asking yourself, what is it missing? How, why, who, the whole 5 W's. I've done a lot of rambling today. I'm sorry. I do teach as part of my job. So I can kind of get on these little side tangents, and I can just roll with them and talk for hours about really anything I'm conducting a class on. And today's class just so happens to be on Fallout 4, my biggest fixation, right? So I hope that gives you a little bit more inspiration on how to lay out your settlement and how to design and fit structures around kind of this implied natural path that develops over time. Thank you so much for watching. This has been Z-Man Plays. I'm Z-Man. I'll see you guys all in the next video.